Hello everyone. In this clip, I am going to show you the difference of a price ceiling and a price floor, which are two kinds of price controls that sometimes governments implement under some situations. So, price ceiling and price floor. Let's take a closer look. Let's start with price ceiling. For a price ceiling to be effective, or more technically, for a price ceiling to be binding, the price ceiling PC must be established below the equilibrium price. So you have this market in equilibrium, PE, QE, PC has to be below that price of equilibrium. Now, when the government intervenes in a market like this, establishing a price below the equilibrium price, well, you are going to notice a very important implication. You are going to see that quantity supply is going to be smaller than what it used to be with no government intervention. Why? Well, because sellers, the producers of this good or service, are being forced to charge a price PC which is below what they could with no government intervention. So many of them say, you know what, I am going to reduce the amount I supply. On the other hand, those buyers in this market are going to welcome this type of policy, because now the government is saying, well, you don't have to pay PE, you only have to pay PC, and as a consequence, the quantity demanded is this larger than before. Now, when quantity demanded is larger than quantity supplied as a consequence of this price ceiling, this leads to a shortage. Now, you are probably thinking, why would the government do that? Well, sometimes governments believe that the price of equilibrium is too high, and therefore in order to ensure that consumers have access to this particular good or service, they establish a price ceiling. A typical example of this is rent control. So in the case of apartment complexes, sometimes the government says, you know what, instead of charging $800 a month, you have to charge only $300 a month. And of course, some landlords are going to say, well, I am not going to rent my apartments. They're going to reduce the amount of apartment supply. And of course, those willing and able to pay not 8 but 300 are going to be larger in number, leading to a shortage of apartments. So this is one of the most important consequences of a price ceiling. Another one is, of course, that you have to wait longer. So there is a rationing mechanism that acts through the waiting time. You pay with your time to wait for one of those apartments. Now, let's see the difference between a price ceiling and a price floor now. For a price floor to be binding, similar to what we did here, the government must establish a price floor that I am going to denote by PF above the equilibrium price. So in this case, the price should be around here. Now notice some important implications. When the price is above the equilibrium price, some consumers, some buyers are going to say, wait a second, I am not going to pay a price higher than what I used to pay before. So the quantity demanded is smaller than the quantity of equilibrium before the government intervenes. On the other hand, you're going to discover that sellers, the producers, are going to welcome this type of government price control, because now they charge and they receive a price which is higher. In this particular case, QS, quantity supply, is larger than quantity demand. This is what economists call a surplus. When sellers are willing to offer more than what buyers are willing to buy or to purchase. An example of this, well, a typical example is the minimum wage. Yes, in the labor market, when you have people offering labor services and companies and sometimes the same government buying or renting these labor services, the minimum wage is essentially a price floor, which acts in exactly the same way. Companies are less willing to hire, the demand for labor is here, than the amount of workers willing and able to offer labor services. And of course, the surplus of people, is what we call unemployment. So there you have the case of a price ceiling and a case of a price floor. These are not the same. They have different, very different implications. A shortage for a price ceiling and a surplus for a price floor. I hope this clarifies a few things, and if it doesn't, once again, let me know.